Spring is calling in Newport. Trade the Sunday scaries for ocean views, fresh air, and just a slower pace. Make it a full weekend. Bonfires on Moolock Beach, Spanish tapas at Zarita and Nye Beach, or explore the Oregon Coast Aquarium's new Amazon Rainforest exhibit opening in May. Plus, there's super cute places to stay. For all the details, go to discovernewport.com/spring to plan your ultimate spring getaway on the iconic Oregon coast. That's discovernewport.com/spring. History is coming to life right now at OMSI at their Titanic Artifact exhibition. With more than 100 authentic items recovered from the wreck site on view, you'll experience life aboard the Titanic and the deeply human stories behind one of history's most enduring legends. Titanic, the Artifact exhibition is on view now. You can get your tickets at omsi.edu. That's omsi.edu. Hey, this is CityCast Portland host Claudia Meza. At the end of today's episode, we have a sponsored segment brought to you by the International School of Portland. I'm talking to Bodo Heiliger, who's going to talk with me about what makes their language immersion approach so unique and why more families are turning to globally focused education right here in Portland. So stick around, especially if you've got kids in your life, because you'll also hear about their upcoming open house on April 24th and what to expect if you go check it out. This is CityCast Portland. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about the sale of Portland Monthly and what it means for local news coverage and the people working there, how our city's 911 dispatchers are being recognized internationally, and some fun free ways to enjoy Portland and maybe, I don't know, meet some new people this month. Joining me today are Willamette Week Arts and Culture reporter Rachel Saslow and food and drink reporter Alex Frane. Welcome, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we jump into the news, as most of our listeners know, I usually ask an opening question so any new listeners can get to know our guests a little better. And today's opening question is based on the news that after nearly 6 years away, the Thompson Elk statue is returning to its pedestal in downtown Portland. You might remember it was moved for its safety after taking on some damage during the 2020 George Floyd protests. A rededication ceremony was held on Sunday, and people are genuinely excited that this statue is back where it belongs, having been in that spot for 126 years before it was removed, which, Rachel, I think that's probably as long as your family has been here. You're 4 generations deep.
Yeah, I think actually we've been here a tiny bit longer, but right around then, yes.
Did your great-great-great-grandfather or grandmother make the Thompson Elk statue?
Yes, they did, Claudia. Thank you so much for asking. They sure did. No, of course not.
You actually had me going there. I was like, wow, really interesting.
So anyhow, if you moved to town sometime in the last 6 years and you want to check it out, it's in the middle of Main Street, downtown between Southwest 3rd and Southwest 4th Avenue. And it's pretty majestic. So my question to you both is, if the city gave you the free range to put up your own statue, what would it be of and where would it go?
Okay, I feel like in this moment, I'm feeling a little bit nervous about making statues of people with all of the Cesar Chavez of it all. So with that caveat that probably right now I would not make a statue of a person, the first thing that came to mind was that I do think we need a statue of Portland Elvis. He's this street performer.
Yes.
He's amazing. I've written about him a few times. He's just a fixture of Portland music scene. He's sort of like a local legend, and he's also a great guy and very supported by the city. He performs at Dante's a lot. He performs up at Star Day Tavern. Anyway, I think there should be a statue of Portland's Elvis, maybe in Old Town, because that's like his favorite neighborhood.
Yeah, and for those who don't know about Portland Elvis, we're talking like looks nothing like Elvis.
No, he looks nothing like Elvis. He sounds nothing like Elvis. I don't think I've ever heard him sing an Elvis song.
Okay. He's just Portland's Elvis.
He does wear a jumpsuit and he just owns it. And the city just supports him. And I think it's beautiful.
Awesome. What about you, Alex?
Well, I also thought about not putting a statue of a person up. And so I was thinking about Portland's most seminal author of all time, Ursula K. Le Guin. And while I think she would balk at the idea of a statue of herself, I thought a good compromise would be a statue of all of her cats.
Yeah.
Or a series of statues of Ursula K. Le Guin's cats scattered throughout town.
That's such a good idea, actually, Alex. Not Rachel, yours was good too. But I'm just thinking
No, his idea is way better. I will own that.
I also had a second thought too, but the other one would be the nightmare elk. We should get that back up as well. If you remember the nightmare elk, that was the replacement for the Thompson elk that was erected in protest and looked like a shrieking nightmare creature from hell. And it was awesome. And I think we should revive it.
I personally was not a fan of nightmare elk, but
Understandably not. It could be facing the Thompson elk to represent the dueling nature of our city.
okay, see, another good idea. Okay. Because I'm like, well, I would take that. Once you gave me the artist statement, I was like, okay, I see it. And I might agree that that's a pretty cool idea.
I'm technically unemployed right now. So if someone wants to hire me to build cat statues around Portland, I'm sure I could learn how.
Well, guys, excellent answers. On to the news of the week. Rachel, you're going to explain why Alex is currently unemployed. You're breaking down what exactly is going on with Portland Monthly after its parent company sold it. And it's, I'm sure, something Alex can also help us fill in, being that he worked there until very recently.
Yeah, this is sort of an awkward / perfect arrangement where the other guest probably knows quite a bit more about this story than I do, but I'm going to try anyway because I did report it out pretty thoroughly last week.
You absolutely did.
Thank you, as the news was breaking. So on April 1st, some people at Portland Monthly got laid off. And what that was including Alex and the editor, Brooke Jackson Glidden. And that was sort of the end result of, on March 23rd, Our Media, which is a similar sort of city magazine conglomerate. They have Detroit Magazine, they have Atlanta, a couple other city magazine glossies. They purchased the parent company of Portland Monthly and a couple of other titles, including Seattle Met. So I was able to get information from court documents up in Seattle about the purchase price and how this all went down, because the sale of the magazine was actually public information because Portland Monthly was in what is called a receivership. I did not know what a receivership was before I was reporting on deadline. Had to figure it out really quick. Basically, it's like a legal business term that's basically like pre-bankruptcy, where you have said, we are in so much debt. And in Portland Monthly's case, it was because of big loans they took out in the past few years that they were unable to pay back in a timely manner. And so you go to the court and you say, we are in so much debt. Can we please have basically like a babysitter to help us solve our financial problems to get out of this problem we're in? So the receivership was the one who helped them make the sale to Our Media. That all went down March 23rd. Alex, this is where you might step in, but Brooke, in my interview with her, said that obviously if you're at a company that's in a receivership and being sold, job security is not feeling great, but all signs were pointing toward people keeping their jobs. And so I think, at least when I talked to her, she felt pretty blindsided by being laid off. Another thing that I found in my reporting was that Portland Monthly was already such a nimble publication. The masthead did not have much meat to cut at all. And so this is really digging into... It digs so deep into the staff that it brings up questions here moving forward, such as how will they continue to put out Portland Monthly? What will the magazine look like in the future? What sort of decisions are they going to make? I don't have those answers yet, but it's definitely something I'm going to be watching.
Yeah, I mean, Alex, I do want you to jump in and give us your side of what's happening. But the reason I think this story is important is that no matter how you feel about Portland Monthly, no matter how you feel about print publications, it really is, for one, it does affect how restaurants and food will be covered, because Brooke Jackson Glidden and Alex Frane are two of the most prolific food writers we have right now. And once Brooke Jackson Glidden left, because she was also the editor of Eater, Portland Eater at one point, you saw
for about 6 years.
Yeah, you saw how that just kind of took a dip. And I don't mean that as a diss to anything. I mean, like, Portland Eater actually disinvested in the publication itself and like laid off a bunch of people. And so no matter how hard the people who are there working right now, they're just not going to have the resources. So Brooke being able, to kind of establish herself in Portland Monthly, kind of lead the charge with food, those who do read that reporting know how important it is for Portland to have, because that is one of our biggest industries, one of the biggest things that attracts people to Portland. So not to say that we don't have an amazing restaurant critics or other food coverage, but it's not going to be as robust, especially losing two people, Alex and Brooke, and losing that platform. So that's why, to me, I was just like, this is kind of a big deal.
I mean, this just speaks to the constant, ongoing, endless stream of corporate consolidation of media companies. These massive conglomerates, Eater was a company before Vox bought it. And then city editors like Brooke Jackson-Glidden and a number of other really talented, really passionate people unionized, and they brought Eater up to be this really phenomenal network of websites. And then Vox decided to just simply collapse all of that work. Like you said, laid off countless workers, laid off editors and journalists and reporters and basically everyone, and consolidated it all into these tiny little teams that have very little information coming in about the cities that they're writing about. I mean, you have editors living in different cities that are leading Eater Portland. I don't even know if Eater Portland has an editor right now, because the last one that they had was pitching me at Portland Monthly for freelance opportunities.
Wow.
And from my understanding, a different media company had agreed to purchase the company in April, I believe is when it was, or maybe even earlier than that. And when it came time to buy the company, they balked, they pulled out, or they wanted to spend less money on it. I don't know the precise details, obviously, but that's when Our Media kind of came in as I believe, the second highest bidder, because in a receivership, it has to go to the highest bidder because that's the person who is going to pay off the most amount of debt. And then the rest of the debt is essentially going to be more or less forgiven. And this is like a lot of federal money and things like that. So Our Media came in, and we only had a week or two knowing that they were going to be the new owners. So that was a really pretty sudden and dramatic change for what we thought was going to happen. And we had to kind of familiarize ourselves. And I don't even remember, and my timeline's a little skewed right now. I don't remember when I learned that Our Media was going to be our new buyers, because there was a certain amount of information being kept from the editors just as a part of the purchase process. But yeah, so the week coming into the 1st of April, the last week of March, there was a certain amount of anxiety in the office because we weren't being told anything. We weren't being told about any meetings that we were going to have with the new owners. We didn't have any notifications about what our usual kind of like monthly-ish or quarterly check-in with the whole company. We weren't given any information on that. So we were like, even up to like the day before, we didn't hear that we were going to have a meeting. That we were going to have a company meeting. And so I was laid off by email at 3:30 in the morning on April 1st. With a simple email: you are no longer employed. Your employment stops today. Your health insurance stops today. I was given no sort of severance. No one who was laid off was given any amount of severance. No one who was laid off was even getting their PTO paid out, which apparently is legal to do in Oregon. And like you were saying, it's not just my own personal loss of this job, which meant, quite a big deal to me. And being able to work with such an incredible team and being able to develop the magazine like we had in the last year and a half and the past 2 years since Brooke joined, and really was steering this, like you said, nimble, I think was the term you used. I often refer to it as a skeleton crew because that's really what it is. I mean, there was 3 editors, an editor-in-chief, and an art director, and then some managing editors, a few of whom also lost their jobs. And now you're looking at a Portland Monthly magazine that has 2 editors, an editor-in-chief, and an art director, and that's it. And Matthew Truehurst, who still is there, is a very accomplished food writer himself, but that's not his beat. His beat is art and culture. And he just doesn't have the resources to be able to cover everything. Neither does, Rebecca Jacobson or Margaret Saylor, who is now the editor-in-chief.
We've had Margaret on the show, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. As brilliant as they all are, and as incredibly hardworking and talented as they all are, they simply do not have the resources available to be able to produce the amount of content that we're used to. I am at a loss as to how they're expected to produce an actual magazine with a team that small. I mean, it does not seem at all viable to me. And I have to wonder what the agenda of Our Media really is, if they're actually intent on, continuing with this 20 plus year legacy of this incredible storied magazine, or if they're looking to strip it for parts. I can't tell you that. I don't know what their agenda is, but I don't see how they can pull off what we've been doing in any way.
Yeah.
And it is a major loss to the food industry as well. I mean, and from what I understand, Our Media wants to be cutting dramatically down on food content for its publications, which includes Seattle Matt and Portland Monthly, which are, solidly very food-oriented publications.
Cities. Yeah,
cities. I mean, that's a huge part of our city's culture.
Exactly.
And I think they have no understanding of our city's culture and what people here value, what people care about, and what they love and what they love to read about.
I reached out to Our Media to try to get comment to get any of these sort of answers, and they didn't even respond to my email.
Wow.
And I looked at some of the other coverage, and they really haven't spoken much at all, which is slightly different than last month. They bought 3 new magazines in Utah, and they did a press release and put out a statement about how they were excited to break into these markets. And the silence feels a little ominous to me. Yeah.
Well, Alex, you know how I feel about all of this. I'm glad that we at least get to have you on the show, and you always have a home here. You know that. But Rachel, thanks for looking into that. Let's take a quick break here. And when we return, I have some pretty good news to share about our city's once troubled 911 dispatch center.
If you're anything like me, March is the time that you start dreaming about shaking off the rainy weather and getting outside to enjoy our beautiful state. Whether that means sipping Pinot in wine country or disappearing into the forest for a weekend reset, that's where Cascadia Getaways comes in. Locally owned and based here in Oregon, they offer vacation homes from the coast to Mount Hood and beyond, making it easy for you to actually get out and explore this incredible region. Plan your next Oregon escape at CascadiaGetaways.com and use the code CityCast2026 for a special discount.
I know many of us are looking out for more ways to be climate conscious, and while many people install solar panels on their homes, millions of renters, condo owners, homes with shady roofs, even small businesses who want to go solar but simply can't install panels are sidelined. Cascadia Community Energy is changing that, eliminating barriers by connecting people to clean, local energy for their homes and businesses through the Oregon Community Solar Program. A community solar is designed to give everyone access to local solar farms without buying the panels. So if you're wondering if you can access discounted local solar farms, Cascadia is now serving the entire PGE service area. With no installations and no termination fees, this is solar made simple. Go discover how you can make an impact and save on your power bill at CascadiaCommunityEnergy.com. That's CascadiaCommunityEnergy.com. If you've lived in Portland before the pandemic, you know how hard our 911 dispatch system fell off. We had some chronic understaffing in all areas of Portland's Bureau of Emergency Communications, or BOEC. And we also had a shortage of ambulance and EMT workers, so that wasn't helping either. People were reporting in 2022 that 911 callers in the Portland area waited more than a minute on average before a dispatcher even answered. But this is on average. Many waited, including myself, closer to 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the time of day. And that's not to mention how long it actually took for help to arrive, which in 2022 had an average wait time, you guys, of 17 minutes. Again, average, because in 2023, you might remember a man died while waiting 32 minutes for an ambulance to arrive. And in 2024, a 45-minute wait was reported. Luckily, no one died then. But after some restructuring and recent leadership of their director, Bob Causey, who we've had on the show, this year, BOEC received accreditation from the International Academy of Emergency Dispatch, meeting medical standards for quality service that rank the Bureau in the top 10% of more than 4,000 agencies worldwide. Now, this accreditation requires advanced medical protocols, and this is in quotes here, consistent medical service for every caller. And this also comes alongside a significant improvement in response times. And just real quick, the amount of intensity and training that 911 dispatchers have to go through is crazy. Like when Bob Causey was on and explaining this, we were just like, holy moly, how is this system even like able to function? They get way more training than police officers. So it's one of the reasons it's been so hard to get a full staff up and running. But back to these response times, according to KGW8, as of February 2026, emergency calls were answered within 15 seconds. I'm sure there's still like the occasional longer call, but 15 seconds from like 1 to 5 minutes is insane. Wait time for response also improved, not only for emergency calls, but for non-emergency requests, thanks in part to our new 311 system. So the average waiting time of 17 minutes for emergency aid dropped to 3 minutes and 41 seconds in 2025. Like, that's incredible. Credit has been given, of course, to the hiring and retention of dozens of new dispatchers as a key driver for this turnaround. And their goal, they're so ambitious, is they want to eliminate wait times entirely. You hit 911, you immediately hear someone, which is crazy, but also I'm like, I believe it. They could do it maybe. So longtime listeners know we've been following our troubled BOIC system since we started the show. It's like one of the first things we really took on because we were so concerned. You're like, what's going on? We've had on former director Michael Myers on, and of course, current director Bob Causey, and an actual 911 dispatcher, Steven Zipperich, who, when he was North America's 911 dispatcher of the year back in 2023. And I think that sort of shows like the service quality that we were given, because back in 2023, our call times and our wait times were so extreme, but yet they could still say like, this guy is amazing. So I just always showed that it was like the infrastructure, not really who we had on board, if that makes sense. And that just, to me, is like such, like that is the story of like public service many of the times, is like the public servants themselves are phenomenal, are trying their best, and they're working in a system that is just so wonky.
That's such good news.
That is.
I had not heard about this turnaround anywhere. I haven't read about it yet. So It's just really, really wonderful to hear. And honestly, just knowing that safety net is there. Luckily, I have not had reason to call 911 in recent years, but it was really just upsetting on a like cellular level, knowing that if you call, they might not pick up, and if they pick up, they might not come. I remember that feeling just really, really scary when all the stories were running from, 2020 to 2023, I guess was kind of the peak of that reporting. So I'm super excited to hear that our city's made a big turnaround in that way.
Yeah. And if you go back to those interviews that we did, you could hear all the details of like the amazing work they did in restructuring their system. It was really smart. It's why we have, 211 and 311 and all this stuff, because they were basically like analyzing who calls in and why. And they're just like, a lot of these are not emergency calls. And it's flooding our system of like, 4 or 5. I'm sure they had more, but like, they were already so understaffed, and they're just like, Portland doesn't understand what an emergency is, and we got to reconfigure this,
People calling in after they've had too many edibles,
Yeah.
I'm laying on the grass.
I can see time. I mean, I feel like we've all been there. So I'm not going to make fun of this. We just like made up this person, and I'm just like, you know what? We've all been there.
The stoner. We're just making like stoner jokes.
We're just making it. I'm like, listen, we've all been there. All right. Well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, Alex has some ideas for free activities and volunteer opportunities that are coming up. History comes to life in Titanic, the Artifact exhibition now on view at OMSI. Immerse yourself in a rare opportunity to explore the innovation, ambition, and tragedy of the Titanic while connecting personally with the people whose lives were forever changed by her voyage. With more than 100 authentic artifacts recovered from the wreck site, you'll experience an immersive gallery combining cinematic visuals and powerful audio reenactments that bring the ship's scale, beauty, and tragedy to life. There's also an optional VR tour for a deeper, more interactive exploration. Titanic, the Artifact Exhibition is on view now. Get tickets at omsi.edu. That's omsi.edu. All right, Alex, what do you got for us?
Well, our spring issue of Portland Monthly, I'm going to say our, because this was an issue that I was involved with the rest of my team. One of the focuses of the issue was on what we were calling the IRL package. For those of you who don't know, that means in real life. Kind of a maybe slightly dated term. Anyways, it was a focus on all sorts of stuff that you could do to get out and about back in the city, especially after, people are still, I think, feeling a little isolated. We all came out of the pandemic in our own ways, but there was all this kind of move to online living during 2020, 2021, 22. That still remains today. There's a lot of this kind of digital life that people just are absorbed in, and people are busy and people are stressed and people are still nervous about getting back out into public and back out into the city. So we worked on a project that was all these really fun ways to get you back out into the real world that weren't just, say, going to a restaurant or a bar. So we had some fun projects in this package. We had Rebecca Jacobson writing about Tabor Dance. We had Matthew Truehertz writing about One Page Wednesdays at the Literary Arts Bookstore, and a bunch of other opportunities around town to share your writing and hear other people's writing. Local writer Lola Milholland wrote about potlucks. Alice Wolf wrote about run clubs. I wrote some stories about where to play tabletop role-playing games in and around town. But then also Rebecca, who was leading this project, she wrote this really fantastic series of free events that you can do in town. Things like the Scream Society, which happens every Wednesday on, I believe, the east side of the Hawthorne Bridge at 6 p.m., where people scream at the river. There's just, I don't think there's ever been a more appropriate time to join a screaming group. Obviously, we got Pedalpalooza coming up in summer, but until then, we have the Midnight Mystery Ride, which runs most Fridays, I think like every other Friday or so, maybe every Friday when it's nice out. There's a lot of opportunities for finding and watching birds around Portland. We have a great avian population. There's the Bird Alliance, which just turned 100 last year. There's even like knitting and crocheting groups. There's secret roller disco, which is not so secret anymore, kind of by design. And then, like you were saying, Brooke Jackson Glennon wrote this really great series about volunteer opportunities, one of which includes the Bird Alliance. They always need people who are out and about with binoculars, spotting and logging avian activity. Friends
Counting
with trees.
crows. I love when people count crows. That's all.
Is it a band joke?
No, it's a thing that people do. They count crows.
Well, there's also the band counting crows.
I know that, but I'm just
working on multiple levels.
I'm just saying, look, that joke did work on multiple levels. Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, there's also like Friends with Trees, right? For those of you who want to get out and get your hands a little dirty planting. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about Portland is just how incredibly verdant, how incredibly tree-filled the city streets are. Like, even outside of our city parks, I feel like a lot of areas, especially inner Portland, have these really beautiful canopies. And then eastern Portland and a lot of other neighborhoods that really desperately need more tree coverage, especially as our summers are getting hotter and hotter. I don't think there's ever a better time to volunteer for a group like Friends of Trees. Urban Gleaners is a really great organization. They do what's called gleaning, which is essentially like recovering spent food and donating it. And it sounds like you're eating table scraps. It's not that. They have evenings with chefs all year where they build these really incredible like prix dinners or fun little like barbecues or things like that, all with food that's been essentially like rescued from the rubbish bin. And then they also obviously are using all of this to be able to feed people who might be food insecure. And they always need volunteers to like gather foods and build meal packages and things like that. I think there's like 22 or so free events that Rebecca noted. And I feel like there's a lot of value in that because I do think that Portlanders, when they think about going out and they think about interacting with their fellow Portlanders, that often comes down to doing something that costs money. More often than not, it is exploring our incredible dining scene or our bars or whatever. But there's like so many other amazing things you can do, like joining a run club or joining a knitting group or a bird watching group. And I just think that if we want to support our city and we want to make our city better and we want to build a community that comes from it needs to come from a very active and purposeful place about getting out and about. And I keep using that turn of phrase for some reason. And it's really beautiful out right now, right? We have this incredible sunny spring. And hopefully our summer will not be horribly smoky, and we'll have plenty of opportunities to hang out outside and meet people. Because I think people are, like I said, are still kind of a little bit lonely.
Yeah, Alex, I got to tell you, one of the most frequent emails we get from listeners is, how do I make friends? How do I meet people? So there's a real need out there. I don't know if, Rachel, you get people emailing you because you do arts and culture.
No, but that's so sad. Oh my gosh. They emailed CityCast about that?
Yeah, because they see us as a resource. We're always talking about events, and they're just like, well, where can I go? I don't drink. That's a big one too.
Right.
Like, I don't drink in Portland is a big deal,
Yeah.
And I just got to double down. Alex was saying, if we want a stronger community, clearly we want actual, physical connections with people in real life. But also, if you're out there and you're just like, I do want to get more involved, follow your likes, follow your interests. Don't, you know what I'm saying? If you like birds, go check that out. If you like knitting, trust me, there is a group for almost anything. We are a city of hobbyists, So
yeah, you're really speaking to what this piece was about, that there is something for everybody in there. I feel like there's a lot of different opportunities for getting out there, more than the ones that I mentioned.
Yeah. And if somebody wanted to go check out, actually spend some time with this, is it online?
I believe all of the stories in this package are online now. And again, there's also the spring issue that just came out about a week before I lost my job. It was a fun time for that. But the spring issue is on shelves right now. It's got some really fantastic art in there by this really amazing claymation artist for all these IRL stuff. You'll just have to check that out.
Yeah, and we'll be linking to what is released in our show notes if you want to dive in a little deeper. Well, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Rachel, thank you for presenting that story. I am glad it wasn't that awkward. We did book Alex for that story because we thought Alex could help us out and did give us a pretty good understanding of what it felt like and what's going on. Again,
and Rachel, I wanted to personally thank you for your work. Sorry, Claudia, not to interrupt. I just wanted to personally thank you for your work on that story. It's actually been extremely useful for me. It's been difficult sometimes for me to explain to people what's happening, and I have generally led by, if I'm texting somebody or DMing them or whatever, I just tend to lead by sending your story.
Oh, thanks. That's such a huge compliment. Thank you.
Local reporting, important.
Very.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you again, Rachel and Alex, for hanging out with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Claudia here with Bodo Heiliger, the head of the International School of Portland, a school downtown that's been helping kids become fluent, curious, and globally minded for 35 years. So Bodo, for folks who may not be familiar, because I know I wasn't, what makes ISP different from, say, other schools here in Portland?
Sure. Thanks, Claudia. 35 years is kind of a big deal. And what makes ISP special is that we've always believed kids are capable of extraordinary things. Children start full language immersion as early as preschool in Japanese, Spanish, or Mandarin. And they're doing that in the most diverse independent school in Oregon, right in the heart of downtown. And we feel that's pretty special. And what makes us different is that, language and culture are not a special class or a little bit extra. They're the heartbeat of the school. Our students are learning to write and read and solve problems and make sense of the world in more than one language. They're also learning how to listen and how to connect and how to move through the world with curiosity and confidence. And I feel like the global piece is real right now. About 80% of our faculty and staff grew up outside of the United States, and that matters. Mm-hmm. Kids are not just reading about the world. They're learning from people who have lived it, who have loved it, and bring it into the classroom every single day. And then we're right in the heart of downtown Portland. We stayed when others have left, and we've stayed because we believe in Portland. We believe kids should grow up connected to beauty, to grit, to creativity, and the possibility of real urban community. It's really funny. In the spirit of true Portland, our absolutely beautiful early childhood building was once an old auto body chop shop where the smell of motor oil and sweat have been transformed into Play-Doh and playfulness. And so we're not just a school in Portland, we're a school for Portland.
Yeah, how does that actually work day to day, this, full-on language immersion? I mean, if you're starting as early as preschool, like, do the parents just choose immediately? Can they switch? Have so many questions.
Usually our families choose one of the languages. And so it's either Japanese, Mandarin, or Spanish, and they do it for a variety of reasons. Some have heritage language, some are first generation in the United States, and some just really believe that, being bilingual is supremely important. It helps build confidence, gain flexibility and empathy, and kind of like an intellectual fearlessness. Kids choose one, and by kindergarten, they'll stick with that language track through 5th grade. And our model is just a little bit different than traditional dual language immersion programs that are in most schools around the city and the state and kind of the country. We're fully immersed, which means that about 80% of the days in the track language. It's 200 more days in language and culture than a more traditional dual language model.
That's so cool. I know early development specialists always say how learning a new language or learning an instrument is just crucial for
Absolutely.
developing brains. And I read somewhere that graduates from your school go on to be leaders in their high schools and colleges. Like 1 year, 4 out of the 8 Portland Public School valedictorians were from ISP. That's a pretty impressive number.
Absolutely, yeah.
Something that really stood out, as you were saying, is how diverse and globally focused your community is. And I know that ISB believes that this cross-cultural learning experience is especially important right now. And I was hoping, could you dive in a little and explain why?
Absolutely. I think we're living in a time when it could be really easy to become fearful of difference or to retreat into smaller and smaller circles. And at ISP, kids are growing up in a completely different story. Difference isn't scary here. It's normal. It's joyful. And that matters because it teaches children something deep in their bones. The world is big. People are different. And that is not a threat. It's a gift. And our kids are learning how to cross bridges and not build walls, and how to ask questions instead of making assumptions, and how to belong to one another even when they are not the same. And honestly, this is the kind of education the world is begging for right now.
Yeah. You're making me wish I could go back in time and enroll myself. That's awesome. Well, you've got an open house coming up on April 24th for families thinking about fall enrollment. What can people expect if they come check it out?
You're going to feel the joy right away. You're going to meet our incredible teachers. You're going to see our campus. You're going to learn about our Spanish, Japanese, and Mandarin programs and get a sense of what it feels to be in a place where kids are deeply known, deeply challenged, and deeply loved. And you'll also see that ISP is not just a school that happens to be downtown. You'll see that we're committed to downtown. We want to be part of making Portland better. We've got over 20 pieces of street art from local street artists in our little neck of downtown Portland. You'll also see the beginnings of our amazing new early childhood playground. We're building what I truly believe is going to be the most amazing little kid playground in the city. And that matters because downtown Portland is a playground desert.
Yeah.
There are just not enough spaces, beautiful spaces, joyful spaces for kids to play. This is bigger than our school. This is about families. This is about a neighborhood. This is about believing that downtown Portland should be wonderful for kids too.
Yeah. It wasn't until I went to Boston that I realized how little public play areas we have in Portland, because in Boston, there's I swear every block has
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome. Well, Bodo, thank you so much for being here. You can learn more about International School of Portland by going to intlschool.org. That's intlschool.org to learn more. We'll have that link for you in our show notes as well, so you're just a click away. Thank you so much for listening. And again, Bodo, thanks again for hanging out with me.
Thanks, Claudia.
But that's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend, rate, leave us an amazing review. And don't forget, you can support us and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Portland neighbor. Just visit membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.